Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive.
Hello there.
I have to say, looking at the research for today, I'm genuinely excited. Usually we're digging into, tackle stats or break down nuances.
Which we love.
We do love that. But today feels different. Today is. It feels like we're walking into a masterclass on psychology, leadership, and, well, a little bit of pantomime villainy, to be honest.
It really does, yeah. We're stepping away from the whiteboard for a moment and stepping into the mind of probably the most fascinating character in the sport right now.
We are talking, of course, about Rassie Erasmus. And look, whether you worship the ground he walks on or you're one of the many people yelling at the TV when he pops up.
And there are many.
There are many. You just cannot ignore him. He's kind of the gravitational center of modern rugby.
Absolutely. The story of the last, decade of rugby? You can't tell it without Rassie Erasmus. He's fundamentally changed things.
So here's the mission for today. We have some massive news about his contract with the Springboks, an extension that is, frankly, staggering.
It really is.
But we're not just looking at the dates. We're looking at the reaction. And specifically, we've got this incredible perspective from a former England fullback, Ben Foden.
And it's not the reaction you'd expect at all.
No. It's a look at what happens when a coach becomes, bigger than the team, and why, according to Foden, that might actually be a stroke of genius.
It's a deep dive into this idea of rarefied air and the power of being a public antagonist.
I cannot wait to get into the Ben Foden comments because they are spicy. But before we do that, I've got to do my job. If you're the kind of person who needs to know why things happen in rugby, not just what happened, you need to subscribe to Rugby Obsession right now.
Please do. We're building a community here.
Exactly. Hit that button and let's get into it.
So let's start with the hard facts. The source material we have from the South African, well, it dropped a bit of a bombshell.
Long term is putting it mildly. Rassie Erasmus isn't going anywhere, is he?
Nope. Not for a long, long time. The headline news is a contract extension that keeps him as the Springbok boss right through to 2031.
2031? I mean, let's just pause on that for a second. That is another 4 years on top of what he's already done.
In a sport where coaches get fired after a bad Six Nations.
Exactly. A commitment to 2031 feels, well, it's almost unheard of.
It's a dynasty play, pure and simple. This is a coach who has already delivered back-to-back Rugby World Cups.
Right.
This extension says that SARU, the South African Rugby Union, believes he can do it for a third cycle. I mean, that's Sir Alex Ferguson territory.
And the source mentions this isn't just a reward for what he's done. There's a very specific immediate goal.
Oh, yeah. They are not paying him to sit on his laurels. The source highlights they're heading into what they call a blockbuster season in 2026.
And the goal?
To defend the title. Again, they're going for a three-peat.
Which would be historic. But it does raise a question for me. When you have a figure who is so dominant, so present, doesn't the message get stale after a while?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think that's where his whole personality comes in. Rassie isn't a static coach. He's always reinventing the narrative.
Which brings us to this dichotomy the source mentions.
The Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing.
Exactly. In South Africa, he's described as a national treasure. He's the architect of joy, brought the trophies home.
But step outside South African borders, and that perception shifts. Aggressively.
The source actually says he's created enemies.
Enemies is the word. It points to his outspoken nature and his different ways of doing things, and we all know what that means.
The videos about referees, the disco lights, the water boy stuff.
All of it. To the rest of the world, he can be incredibly abrasive.
Which brings us perfectly to Ben Foden, former England international, 34 caps, a guy from a really competitive era.
And you'd think, given the England-South Africa rivalry, which is fierce...
You'd assume he would be leading the charge of critics.
You would, especially with how Rassie treats the English media sometimes. But Foden's take is, well, it's surprisingly nuanced. He doesn't dismiss the antics. He actually leans into them.
So let's get to it. Foden says Rassie is always stirring the pot.
Stirring the pot. It's such a great phrase. It implies intent, doesn't it? It's not an accident. Foden is basically saying Rassie wakes up and chooses chaos.
And he gives a specific example that really made me laugh. It's about Rassie's TV habits.
Oh, this is classic Rassie. So Erasmus publicly stated that he is not interested in watching England.
I mean, come on. That is a direct slap in the face. One of the biggest rugby unions in the world, historic rival, and the Bull coach just says, nah, not bothering to turn on the TV.
It is so dismissive. But look at the reason he gave. He said he's only interested in who is going to be the next threat for South Africa.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate here. Is that confidence or is that just pure arrogance?
It's a fine line.
Because if I'm the England coach, I am pinning that quote to the changing room wall. I'm telling my players, he doesn't respect you. Isn't he just giving his opponents free ammunition?
He absolutely is, and that is what makes Foden's analysis so fascinating. Foden doesn't say, how dare he? He looks at that and basically says, well, he's allowed to say that.
Why? Why does he get a pass?
Because of where he's standing. Foden uses this amazing phrase. He says, when you've won back-to-back World Cups and you're #1 in the world, the air that he breathes is very crisp and very rarefied.
Rarefied air. Sounds like he's on top of Mount Everest looking down on everyone else.
That's the exact image. Foden's point is that results buy you immunity. He argues that when you're in that rarefied air, you, and I'm quoting, can't really put a foot wrong. The scoreboard justifies the behavior.
So if a coach of a losing team said that, he'd be laughed out of the room.
He'd be called delusional. But Rassie, he's got the gold medals to back it up. Success creates its own reality.
But I'm still stuck on the why. Why do it? Is it just to annoy England, or is there a deeper strategy?
I think Foden hints at the deeper strategy. It's about setting your own standard. By saying, I'm looking for the next threat, he's telling his own team.
That the current standard isn't good enough.
Precisely. We aren't competing against England today. We're competing against some theoretical future monster. It stops his own players from getting complacent.
That's a really sharp point. It totally reframes the competition. But before we get deeper into how this actually affects the players, because Foden has some great thoughts on that, I just want to remind you, if you're enjoying this breakdown, you really should subscribe to Rugby Obsession.
We try to peel back these layers every single time.
So if you want to be the smartest person at the pub during the next test match, hit subscribe.
So we have the rarefied air, we have the pot stirring, but Foden takes it a step further. He asks why this actually helps the Springboks.
Right, because you'd think the players would just want a quiet life. Coach, please, just stop tweeting so I can focus on my lineouts.
Exactly. But Foden argues that Rassie has the will and the nerve to put himself on the chopping block. That phrase, chopping block, is so
It
important.
sounds like a sacrifice.
It is. Foden is suggesting that by making himself the center of attention, the guy ignoring England, the guy with the disco lights, he is drawing all the fire towards himself.
He's a human shield.
A deflection shield, yeah. The media spends all week talking about Rassie's latest quote. They're not analyzing the fly half's form. They're not critiquing the props.
All the pressure goes on them.
And he seems to thrive on it. Foden mentions seeing this in different TV shows and behind-the-scenes footage, you know, like Chasing the Sun.
So he's seen the man at work.
He's seen that it's not just random noise. It's calculated emotional engineering. And he knows it's all about one thing, how to get the best out of his players.
And the ultimate proof comes from the squad themselves.
Foden nails this. He says Rassie is coaching a great bunch of guys who back up his words every time they go out in the field.
That's the deal, isn't it? Rassie writes the checks with his mouth, and the players cash them on the field.
Perfectly put. And because they keep cashing them, the cycle continues. The rarefied air gets crisper. The pot gets stirred more vigorously.
But there has to be a but, right? Gravity applies to everyone eventually. Foden puts a little warning label on all this, doesn't he?
He does. He says, I'm sure he comes under pressure as well. He's got to maintain it.
Maintain it. That's the hardest thing in elite sport.
Yeah.
Getting to the top is one thing.
Staying there for a decade is something else entirely. And that's where the source material talks about this pressure period heading into the 2026 season.
How so? They're world champs. You'd think they'd be relaxed.
Quite the opposite. Being #1 just means you have the biggest target on your back. Everyone is hunting you now.
And this is where that next threat comment becomes a bit of a double-edged sword.
A huge one. Because if he ignores England and then England go and beat them.
He looks foolish.
Exactly. The rarefied air disappears very, very quickly if you lose. The arrogant winner is a genius. The arrogant loser is just a disaster.
High wire walking without a net. And that 2031 contract, that's a very long time to be walking on a high wire.
It is. It really is. And the game evolves, tactics change. The next threat Rassie is looking for might be a tactical shift he hasn't even seen yet.
It's just fascinating that Foden, an Englishman, seems to almost admire the sheer audacity of it all. He calls him a character and says it's great for the game.
I think Foden recognizes that rugby needs these figures. It needs narratives. It needs villains. If everyone was polite and media trained, the sport would suffer. Rassie brings the drama.
Okay, so let's just recap the key takeaways. Rassie is locked in until 2031, a true dynasty move.
He's seen by some as a pot stirrer, but by others, like Ben Foden, as a master psychologist operating in rarefied air.
And his whole method is built on taking all the pressure onto himself to shield his players, but only as long as they keep winning.
Which is the big question heading towards 2026. The hunt is on.
So now I want to turn the mic over to you, the listener.
Mm.
We've heard Ben Foden's take that Rassie's success buys him the right to be controversial. But what do you think?
I'm really curious to hear the opinions on this one.
Is this strategy of, ignoring teams like England a brilliant motivation tool? Is 4D chess? Or is it just a massive risk? Let us know in the comments. Is stirring the pot a sustainable strategy all the way to 2031?
It's a long time to keep that spoon moving.
It certainly is. And here's one final thought to leave you with. Rassie said he's not watching England because he's looking for the next threat. Right. So if he doesn't see England as the threat, and he's already beaten the All Blacks in a final, who is the threat?
Who is the ghost he's actually chasing?
Exactly. Is there a team out there that genuinely keeps Rassie Erasmus up at night? Or is the only real threat to the Springboks? The Springboks themselves.
That's the question for the next World Cup cycle, isn't it?
It is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a blast.
Right.
And before you go, a huge request from us. If you want to keep up with the next threat, please subscribe to Rugby Obsession.
It's going to be a massive few years for the sport. You won't want to miss it.
Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive. And we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode.